Today's video is about running specific strength, and more specifically, the running strength and stability to keep that nice alignment that we talked about in previous videos. So whether it's on two legs, or more importantly, we're going to do some single-legged things, working on the strength and stability to keep everything aligned as you run outside. So we're going to work a little bit on single leg balance and moving through that without letting knees cave in, ankles cave in, all that kind of stuff. We're going to work a little bit on internal hip stability, so the muscles that will help us prevent our hips from dropping as we run. It'll help keep our hips level. And then a little bit of starting to work on sort of that push off, single leg push off strength and stability without letting our toes turn in. So the three moves that we have are essentially a single leg Romanian deadlift. So I'm actually going to move this out of the way. So this one we're really focusing on balance. Now you might find already that just being barefoot is going to add a whole new dimension to doing your single leg Romanian deadlifts. Great, that's good. That's going to help strengthen all of these little intrinsic muscles so that you can take more work off of your hips and knees even when you're wearing shoes. So single leg Romanian deadlifts is that hinge movement. So I want to make sure my feet are lined up parallel. I'm going to shift, in this case I'm going to shift to my left leg, and I'm either going to just prop my foot behind me or I'm going to hold it in the air behind me. I don't want you to do a huge range of motion on this, right? Running isn't actually that big of a range of motion, at least right now for most of us. So I just want you to be able to keep your upper body alignment. So if you want, you can put your hands on your pelvis and rib cage. You can put your hand on your chest to make sure you're not lifting up. Whatever you need to do to keep everything square. So as you hinge, everything's staying nice and square and you're coming back up to standing, right? The other thing I want you to do is try to keep that shin perpendicular. So I want you to reach your hip back and stand up as opposed to kind of sinking down and coming up, right? Reach your hip back, or think about reaching this leg back and coming back up. So once again, what I'm paying attention to from the front is I start out, I have my nice alignment here. I'm going to shift onto my right leg this time. And I want to watch that I don't turn, right? Now all of a sudden, if I were to plant my other foot, I'm no longer in that parallel stance, right? So I want to keep that parallel stance as I hinge. So same thing as I hinge, I might find that I'm turning or I'm opening. If I were to plant my foot, it's definitely not parallel feet, okay? So that's what you're paying attention to. So that's why this doesn't have to be a huge movement, right? Because you're really trying to pay attention to what's happening in your hip, knee, and ankle as you go, okay? So that's one way to work on that strength and stability. So feeling if your foot's collapsing, knees are twisting, or if a hip is dropping, right? Anything like that. Next one for that internal hip stability, it's called the pelvic list. You can start by doing this flat. So we'll start with that. So if I'm going to start with this flat, what this move is I'm going to use my left leg. I'm going to push down with my left leg to lift my right leg. Super weird, I know. So I'm going to push into my left leg to lift my right leg. I'm not side crunching. I'm pushing down and lifting up. This might be a very little move. I'm going to switch sides. So I'm pushing into my right leg to lift my left hip. It's not necessarily a huge range of motion. And if this is really new to you, you might not feel it very much at all. So what you can do is, starting out, if I'm going to work my left leg, I'm going to let my right hip drop, right? Sassy hip, okay? So I'm going to let that hip drop. Then I'm going to push into my left leg to lift that up. It might help you get a better feel for what we're doing. So pushing down in my left leg to lift my right leg. Once again, if I do this move, sassy hip, keep this leg, let your left hip drop, and then you're going to press down into your right leg to lift your left hip. Okay, that's the starting move. Once you feel like you have a good handle on that, you can use a yoga block, textbook, stairs, step stool, anything that you can have, anything where you can stand on one leg and let the other leg hang through. Okay, so with this, same idea. I still want to have those parallel outside edges of my feet, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to hold on to this for balance right now. And the first thing is, can you stand here letting this, you don't necessarily have to flex your foot, but letting this leg hang without it hanging. Can you just hold it at the same level of the block? That'd be the first thing. Then you could add the pelvic list, where I'm going to drop this, I'm going to let this leg drop, and then I'm going to push down and bring the other hip up. Push down to bring the other hip up. So once again, making sure that you have parallel outside edge of your feet. So I don't want to turn into this position, right? Because now I have that same external rotation. So I want to keep that nice parallel foot position. And first, can I just hold this here? Can I just be here with level hips without doing this? And then when I do that, can I push up and back down? So that's going to build that internal hip strength to keep your hips level while you're walking and running and doing lots of other things. And then the last one is the precursor to sort of jumping or plyometric work, which is calf raises. So first thing, when we do calf raises, parallel feet, nice line, yada, 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 keep all that. But when we go up, we got to watch for ankles coming out like this, right? Or coming in, or anything else, right? So we want to keep everything nice and stacked. I have this nice right angle from my big toe to my pinky toe to my heel. That nice right angle, I want to keep that, and everything's going to stay in line with that, right? My ankles aren't here or here. They're not going like this, okay? So we're being very, and that might mean you're not going as far, right? So think of it more like an elevator, just elevating your heels up and back down. So that's the two-legged version. The next thing would be, we're going to sort of combine a couple things. So one leg, I'm going to have that little hinge. I'm going to come up onto that one foot, right? Because running is ultimately single leg movements. So same thing, that little hinge, and then coming up onto the ball of my feet. Same idea. I don't want to, as I do that, I want to watch that I'm not coming out on the edge. So you see I can roll out there. Keep that nice and stable. So those are 3 moves that can help with that alignment and strength and stability that we talked about in our alignment videos.